Please subscribe and share for more story. The promise of peace can trick a person more than any enemy ever could. It tells you that you've finally reached safety just before life proves otherwise. That was what Helena Brooks believed when she bought a small cedar cabin hidden deep in the hills outside Redwood Falls in Western Carolina. She was 59 then, convinced she had earned silence after decades of exhausting work. Helena spent her life waiting tables in a roadside restaurant that smelled like burnt bacon and old mop water. Later, she balanced invoices for a trucking company, squinting at numbers under buzzing fluorescent lights. She skipped breaks, skipped weekends, skipped anything that cost money. The cabin became the symbol of everything she had delayed: fresh air, a chair by a window, mornings with no alarm clock. When she walked beneath those longleaf pines, she felt anonymous and free, no longer the dependable employee or the always available mother. She was only Helena, tired, practical, hopeful. Every board she repaired, every dollar she sank into that land, came from her aching wrists and stiff knees. But it was hers. Completely hers. One Thursday afternoon in early April, Helena packed a small overnight bag, shut off her phone, and left her tiny apartment in the suburbs of Raleigh. She didn't bother informing anyone. She only wanted 2 days without obligations, a quiet fire, a mug of ginger tea, and a view of the distant ridges turning blue at dusk. Lately, her son, Evan, had been acting strange. His messages were curt, and his voice calls lasted barely 30 seconds. His wife, Brielle, hadn't replied to her last 2 voicemails. Helena tried not to worry. Young people get busy, she told herself. They have meetings, dinners, schedules. Their silence had nothing to do with love. So Helena drove north, crossed winding state roads, and felt her body slowly loosen. By the time she turned onto the gravel path leading toward her retreat, she was smiling. Then her smile vanished. 3 cars sat in her driveway: Evan's charcoal sedan, a dark SUV she didn't know, and a navy hatchback. Helena didn't stop in front of the house. Instinct tightened her spine, and she parked farther down the bend, hidden by a screen of young oaks. She sat for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. No one had asked to use the cabin. No one had announced a visit. The last time she spoke to Evan, he had said he was tied up with a work assignment and couldn't get away at all. That had now revealed itself as a lie. Helena stepped out of the vehicle. Her legs were steady, not from confidence, but from a slow-forming, controlled anger. She walked carefully up the gravel, listening. Before she reached the porch, she heard laughter, loud, entitled laughter, and music that didn't belong to her quiet refuge. Her jaw clenched. She didn't knock. Ownership required no invitation. She turned the knob and stepped inside. The living room had been rearranged like a vacation rental. Helena's pine table remained, but everything personal had vanished. The framed photographs she hung, her father in uniform, her grandmother in church gloves, little Evan smiling with scraped knees, had been stripped away. In their place sat glossy prints of beaches and wine bottles. On her table were empty champagne flutes, half-eaten pastries, and expensive dinner scraps. The fire crackled as if celebrating without her. Brielle was the first to notice Helena. The younger woman lounged in Helena's favorite recliner, legs crossed, a stemless wineglass dangling from careless fingers. Instead of surprise, Brielle's expression showed irritation, as though an unwanted clerk had barged in. She stood slowly and set down her drink with a sharp, deliberate tap. The room went silent. Evan stared from the window, his face turning pale. 2 strangers, a middle-aged couple Helena vaguely recognized as Brielle's parents, occupied her couch, staring with bored curiosity. Brielle folded her arms and stepped forward. Her voice was smooth and poisonous. "What are you doing here, Helena? This isn't your weekend." Helena didn't flinch. She met the woman's gaze. "It's my home. I don't schedule myself." Brielle's mouth curled. "Don't be dramatic. You weren't invited. You're trespassing, and if you don't leave, I'll call the police." Evan lowered his eyes, shrinking into silence. The couple on the sofa exchanged small, judgmental looks. Helena felt something old inside her snap. Not fear, not confusion, but clarity. "Call them," she said softly. The room tightened. Brielle blinked, caught off guard. Helena walked farther into the space and sat on the opposite couch. "Call anyone you want. I'm right here." The authority in her tone unsettled the group. Brielle lifted her phone, but her hand trembled. Evan finally whispered, "Mom," but Helena kept her focus. She was done shrinking. She was done apologizing. She had come home. Brielle tried again, her voice rising in brittle outrage. "You can't just burst in. This is a private gathering. Evan told us we could be here. He said you were staying in Wilmington until Monday." Helena tilted her head, her eyes steady. "I never said that. And no one has the right to invite themselves into property I pay for." Brielle scoffed. "Evan wouldn't lie. He told us you approved everything. Maybe you forgot. It happens at your age." Evan winced at the jab, but he offered no defense. Helena stood, walked to the blank wall where her photographs once hung, and touched the empty nail holes. "Where are my pictures?" she asked quietly. The strangers looked away. Brielle rolled her eyes. "We put them somewhere safe. The decor needed refreshing." Helena turned back toward them and spoke slowly. "You erase me from my own house. And you want to pretend that's normal?" Evan finally rose from his chair, voice unsteady. "Mom, please don't get worked up. It's just a weekend. Brielle's parents wanted a break, and we all thought this would be good for everyone." Helena stared at him. "Good for everyone but me." Brielle stepped between them. "He's your son. He has a right to use the cabin." Helena answered, "He has a right to ask. He has a right to respect boundaries. But he does not have a right to erase my belongings and lie about my permission." Brielle's cheeks flushed. "You're making a scene. If you don't calm down, I'm calling the police." Helena responded without raising her volume. "Do it. I'd like a neutral witness." That answer rattled Brielle. She expected tears or apology. Instead, Helena took a seat again, crossed her ankles, and rested her hands in her lap like she was attending a performance she'd already seen. Silence sat heavy between them. The middle-aged couple, Howard and Diane Mercer, Brielle's parents, shifted nervously. Howard cleared his throat, adopting a booming voice meant to portray reason. "Mrs. Brooks," he said, "there's no need to escalate this. Evan informed us you'd authorize the visit. He said you were grateful we'd help prepare the place." Helena gave him a thin smile. "Is that the story you were told?" Howard nodded, discomfort flickering behind his eyes. "That's correct." Helena looked at Evan. "You told them that?" Evan swallowed. "I thought—" She cut him off. "You lied." Brielle jumped in. "Enough. You're blowing this out of proportion. It's one mix-up." Helena lifted a hand. "A mix-up doesn't remove family photos. A mix-up doesn't call the owner a trespasser." Brielle's patience snapped. "Evan is your family. He deserves access. You're being petty." Helena stared at her with a quiet intensity. Petty is stealing someone's home for a weekend getaway. Petty is calling the rightful owner confused. Petty is expecting someone else's work to pay for your leisure. Brielle's face reddened. "That's enough. I'm calling 911. She tapped the screen, put the phone on speaker, and waited. The operator's calm voice answered, 911. "What's your emergency?" Brielle performed a shaky breath. "We need police. A woman forced her way into our rental cabin. She refuses to leave." Helena's eyes narrowed. "Rental?" The lie grew larger. The operator asked, "Is the woman threatening anyone?" Brielle's tone became theatrical. "She's agitated and unpredictable. We're afraid." The operator responded, "Stay inside. A unit is on the way." When Brielle ended the call, she looked triumphant. "They're coming. You have 10 minutes to walk out on your own terms." Helena simply folded her hands. "I'll wait for them." Evan rubbed his temples. "Mom, please don't do this." Helena looked at him steadily. "Why not? You already erased me from my own home. Now let's see how you explain that to law enforcement." Diane wrung her fingers. "Helena, surely we can talk this through." Talking, Helena replied, requires honesty. Start there. No one moved. The fire popped loudly, the only sign of life in the room. Brielle began pacing, occasionally glancing out the window. Evan sat frozen. Howard tapped his heel into the rug, impatience betraying his guilt. Helena remained still. Her stillness was louder than shouting. 22 minutes later, tires crackled over gravel. Blue lights flickered across the cabin walls. 2 deputies stepped onto the porch, one broad and gray-bearded, the other younger and sharp-eyed. Brielle rushed to the door. Her voice trembled with rehearsed relief. Thank you for coming. She's inside, causing a disturbance. She broke in and scared us. The deputies entered cautiously. The older one, Deputy Sanders, asked, Who owns the property? Brielle opened her mouth, but Helena raised a hand. I do. My name is Helena Brooks. Brielle snapped back. That's not true. Evan's her son. He has authority here. Deputy Sanders frowned. Authority and ownership aren't the same. He turned to Helena. Ma'am, do you have proof? Helena rose and walked to her overnight bag. She pulled out a weathered folder stuffed with documents. Her movements were unhurried. She handed the folder to Deputy Sanders. Property deed, tax records, utility bills, mortgage statements. All in her name. Sanders read carefully. His skepticism faded into confirmation. The younger deputy nodded. Sanders looked at Brielle. She's the sole owner. Brielle's mouth fell open. Evan shut his eyes as though bracing for impact. Helena spoke softly, addressing no one and everyone. You tried to remove me from what I built. You tried to paint me unstable. But the truth has a way of standing. Deputy Sanders asked, Ma'am, do you want them removed from the property? Helena looked at each face, her silent son, Brielle's crumbling pride, the parent's shame, and said, Yes, I want them gone. Deputy Carter began writing notes, and Deputy Sanders addressed the others. You all need to gather your belongings and leave the premises. The owner doesn't consent to your presence here. Howard tried saving face. Officer, this was all based on what Evan told us. We believed we were welcome. Helena didn't soften. Believing a lie doesn't make it truth. Brielle stepped toward Sanders. This is unfair. Evan is her son. Family has rights. Sanders shook his head. Not without permission. Brielle rounded on Helena. You're punishing us for a harmless trip. Helena's gaze chilled. You replace my memories with hotel art. You erase my face from my own walls. That isn't harmless. Brielle's voice wavered. So what now? We just leave like criminals. Helena answered, No. You leave like guests who were never invited. Howard tried speaking again. Helena, surely we can negotiate something. She faced him. My whole life has been negotiation. My time, my earnings, my patience. Now I'm done. Evan finally spoke, voice raw. Mom, please. We didn't think you'd mind. Helena turned slowly toward him. You didn't think I would mind being replaced in my own house? You didn't think I would mind being lied about? Or being called confused because it suited your story? Evan's shoulders slumped. I messed up. Brielle cut in quickly. This is ridiculous. He's apologizing. Isn't that enough? Helena shook her head. Words don't undo disrespect. Brielle muttered, You're impossible, and began shoving clothes into a duffel. Helena inhaled deeply and looked at Deputy Sanders. Before they go, I need you to witness something. Evan's head snapped up, panic in his eyes. Mom, don't. But Helena was already reaching into her bag for a second folder, one thicker, bulging with printouts. She laid it neatly on the pine table. Evan, she said, how much support have I given you in the last 4 years? Evan swallowed hard. I don't know. I do, Helena replied. She slid out a summary sheet. 36,400. Brielle's parents stared at Evan. Brielle blinked, stunned. Helena continued, her tone steady. 10,000 for your engagement trip. 5,000 toward your wedding. 4,000 so Brielle could clear a card balance. 7,000 over time for shortfalls. Rent, contributions. utilities, patchwork rescues. Each figure landed like a stone. Brielle tried to recover. Those were gifts.
Parents help.
It's normal. Helena nodded. Gift implies choice. But most of these transfers came after messages saying we have no options or we'll get evicted or just this last time. She handed Deputy Carter her printed bank records. Carter skimmed. Evan's voice cracked. Mom, I never meant. Helena cut him off. You meant for me to fix things. Every time. Brielle straightened her shoulders. You're humiliating him. Helena answered. Humiliation happens when behavior meets daylight. Diane whispered to Howard, 36,000, but Helena wasn't finished. I also pay for Evan's insurance, $200 a month, and cover a portion of your condo payment, $600 monthly. Brielle went still. Howard's brows lifted. Diane's mouth opened, then closed. Helena continued. And all while you three treat me like an unpaid maid. You use my money, my patience, and now my home. Evan covered his face. Mom, I'm sorry. We were overwhelmed. Helena replied, I was overwhelmed when I was your age too. But I didn't demand someone else sacrifice their life to cushion my choices. Brielle tried again, quieter now. You can't pull everything. We're depending on it. Helena nodded once. Exactly the problem. She took out her phone and opened her banking app. Deputy, please watch as I cancel every recurring payment to Evan. She tapped the screen. Insurance canceled. Supplemental mortgage payment canceled. Auto drafts discontinued. Evan stared in horror. Brielle stepped closer, voice desperate. You're leaving us stranded. Helena didn't blink. Stranded is learning. Helena placed her phone down. The car Evan drives is tied to my name too. I'm removing myself from the loan paperwork. If he can't qualify a loan, he'll return the car. Brielle's composure broke. We need that. We can't get to work without it. Helena stared at her flatly. Then moved closer to work. Downsize.
Adjust.
I once walked to 3 jobs. Diane found her voice. Helena, have a heart. This is family. Helena faced her. Family isn't a drain. Family isn't entitlement. Family isn't erasing the woman who feeds you. Howard tried logic. But it's spring. Hard season for moves. And you'll regret acting rash. Helena shook her head. What I regret is giving 40 years of work to people who think I owe them more. There was nothing dramatic in her tone. Only truth. Brielle pointed at her, desperation winning over arrogance. You want to destroy us. That's what this is. Helena stepped closer now, not loud, not angry.
No.
I want accountability. She turned to Evan. You're 33. You're not a child. You're not helpless. And I'm not your credit line. Evan's breath hitched. I thought you enjoyed helping. Helena's stare softened only slightly. Did I look joyful? Or tired? Did you ever ask? Evan fell silent. Brielle tried once more. You're going to push him away forever. Helena replied, No. I'm giving him a chance to stand. The deputies watched without comment, a silent record of consequence. Deputy Sanders checked his watch. You all have 20 minutes left to clear out. Brielle packed faster, her movements jerky. Diane folded sweaters in stiff silence, shame turning her cheeks blotchy. Howard muttered under his breath about timing and blown out of proportion, but he still filled 2 suitcases. Evan moved slower, then stopped entirely. He looked at Helena with wet eyes. Mom, please. Can't we undo this? Helena shook her head. Undoing would mean pretending nothing happened. Pretending you didn't lie. Pretending you didn't sit silent while your wife called me a trespasser. Evan's chin quivered. I didn't know how to stop it. Helena answered, by opening your mouth. He lowered his stare. And packed. When the packing was done, the procession toward the door began. Brielle marched out first, dragging a suitcase across the threshold without looking back. Diane followed, clutching 2 tote bags to her chest as though shielding herself from judgment. Howard paused long enough to mutter, We tried to help, but Helena didn't reply. Evan stood last. He held a single duffel, shoulders caved inward. He looked smaller than she had ever seen him, like the boy who once stood in trouble and waited for someone else to rescue him. "Mom," he whispered, "is there truly no room to talk?" Helena faced him steadily. "There's room to change. Talking comes after." Evan gave one small nod and stepped outside. Deputy Sanders and Deputy Carter walked them to their cars and waited while each engine started. Gravel spit under tires. 3 vehicles rolled down the winding road into the twilight. Silence returned. Real silence, not the uneasy kind. Helena exhaled for the first time in hours. Inside, the cabin was a battlefield of rearranged furniture and stripped walls. Helena stood before the bare space where her photographs had hung. She went upstairs and found a cardboard box shoved behind a door. Inside were her memories. Her father's smile frozen in black and white, her grandmother's pressed curls, young Evan splattered in mud, laughing. Helena carried the box downstairs. She took her hammer and nails from a kitchen drawer and rehung each picture with patient care. With every frame she lifted, she reclaimed a tiny piece of herself. The cabin no longer felt invaded. It felt wounded, but healing. When she finished, she stepped back and looked at the restored wall. No beach prints. No wine advertisements. Her people were home again. Helena sank into her recliner, the one Brielle had lounged in with careless possession. The cushion welcomed her like an old friend. A faint smell of someone else's perfume still lingered, but it would fade. She lit a small fire and boiled water for ginger tea. While the kettle warmed, her phone vibrated. A text from a number she didn't recognize. "Helena, we're driving back to town. Please don't follow through with the loan paperwork. We can't survive without that help."
She knew it was Brielle.
The language was too frantic, too strategic. Helena typed slowly. "Growth doesn't happen while clutching someone else's wallet. Learn to stand. Then we can speak."
She hit send.
Another text came seconds later. Evan this time. "Mom, I'm scared. I don't know how to fix everything." Helena stared at the words. Then she answered, "Fear is the first step toward responsibility. You will manage. You must." Helena blocked no one, not now. She didn't need to. This wasn't punishment. It was release. She set the phone aside, poured her tea, and wrapped her hands around the warm mug. Outside, the mountains had turned deep indigo. Wind threaded through tall pines, whispering along the roofline. Helena let herself feel the ache, the betrayal, the shock, the finality. But beneath the ache was something stronger. Space. Space to breathe. Space to be still. Space that did not belong to demands or rescues or guilt. For the first time in decades, she allowed her shoulders to drop. She didn't owe her exhaustion to anyone. Later, she stepped onto the small porch. Stars scattered across the sky in careless brilliance. Helena listened to crickets, to wind, to the steady beat of her own pulse. She thought of motherhood, not as endless sacrifice, but as stewardship. You guide. You teach. Then you let go. She had loved fiercely. She would continue to love. But love was not a lifetime contract of surrender. It was a truth that asked something from both sides. Helena lifted her mug in a quiet toast to the dark horizon. "Stand on your own, Evan," she murmured. "Stand, and one day we'll talk as equals." She went inside, closed the door, and locked it, not out of fear, but ownership. Her cabin. Her boundaries. Her peace.